Rudi called our practice, this practice, the work. And that always was very fundamental to me. That it was not a passive experience. It was not an occasional engagement. It was not something that happened by itself. Somehow, we were all involved. Each of us, individually, in the work. There was a collective element to it, which was called class. And in the class experience, Rudi would impart something he called Shaktipat. Shaktipat he referred to often as energy. He would impart it through his eyes. He would impart it through bodily gestures and movements. And our job, sitting there as students, was to be part of this collective energy and to take that energy in somehow to move it through our, what he called psychic system, and have it expand us, to make us more than the constricted, limited, world-dominated, meaning societally created being, and to find our true self, our true nature, by having this larger energy come in and open us to ourselves. That practice was powerful, and it was recognizable immediately by certain people who continued to come to the class. It was not recognized or rejected by others who did not come or stay in the class. But for anybody who came and felt it, and often the feeling of it was beyond a kind of subtle emotion, sometimes it was like a jolt to the whole bodily system, something happened. He would send energy into the room, and individuals in the room would have enormous reaction to that energy, often falling over, starting to shake. It was a little bit dramatic, maybe a selling point on some level for people who wanted it to be more than just still-pointed meditation. But really what it was a profound giving, and if you will, a profound taking of energy, of something, he would call it higher, something worth gathering to get. And once you started to experience this energy, you could sense it in other spaces that were not a classroom space. You might sense it in a movie theater, where there was a collection of people all responding in unison to certain climactic events that raised your energy level and allowed you to mostly express the same thing the people in the auditorium were expressing. Rudi's teaching to us was sit in the auditorium and be open, and when they all go like that, you draw it in. Just energy. It's just energy. Eat it. Consume it. It will grow you and expand you. The energy had a feeling to it. It's hard to describe it as a singular feeling. It could feel like a punch in the gut. It could feel like someone just gave you the most beautiful kiss ever. It could feel like somebody had just loved you in a way you had never been loved, except maybe by your mother when you were a child, maybe your dad. It felt like something real was happening, and it was, if you will, completing you, to use Tom Cruise's line. You complete me. Rudi completed people. He brought in the part that was missing and helped you fill it out. He helped you see the place that was missing. And if he didn't give you the thing that you needed in that moment, he taught you how to go out in the world and find it. Or, even more simply, how to go into yourself and find it. Because the thing that was missing was findable. And if you kept going deeper and deeper into these wells of being inside you that Rudi distinguished as chakra system, your mind was part of it, starting in your third eye. Your whole egocentric being was in your throat, if you will. Your capacity for love was in your heart. Your intuitive, powerful nature of being was in your gut, in your belly. Your sex chakra was about recreation over and over, rebirth, reawakening. And at the base of your spine was this huge elevator-like energy that lifted you up through all of these chakras and ultimately through the top of your head out into something so much bigger and so much greater than your day-to-day life gave you. People who connected to this practice committed to the work. And Rudi described the work as sitting still every day for a period of time. He gave you kind of 20 to 30 minutes. He insisted that this Shaktipat energy could come from a photograph of him. And so every one of us got photographs and we put them on altars and we sat and we lit a candle or some incense maybe. And we sat there with our eyes open staring at a photograph. I mean, I know what that looks like. Why would anybody do that? It looks ridiculous. It also looks ridiculous to just sit and meditate. What a waste of time. Why would anybody do that? Well, Shaktipat is as close as you get to being hugged by your mother, hugged by the universe, hugged by someone you love, without actually touching and feeling and being in their presence. It is like being embraced by all there is and being told, it's okay, you're all right. It is reinforcing and reawakening, and it is a blessing of being, and you get it in yourself whenever you sit down to reach for it. And if you don't get it, Rudi would say, work harder. You can't be passive. If you need to be loved by the world, and maybe even find love in the world, if you need to find joy and comfort and well-being and clarity and understanding and knowing and wisdom, go into these spaces, do the work. If you are occasional about this, you will get an occasional response. If you are serious about this, you will get a serious response, meaning life will transform you day by day by day into something other than the person who began the journey before you had begun to meditate. I think if we all look back at who we were at some point in time, we see growth happening. Mostly people who have done this work can see enormous transformation. People who don't do work, any one of us who knows people like that, and that's probably in profound numbers, sees the difference. What does it look like if you're not responsible for your own development as a human being? It looks like a haphazard creation. Sometimes you luck out, sometimes you don't, sometimes things go well, sometimes they don't. But what really tends to happen is that you are not part of the equation. You are a reactor to life events. And usually a reactor that's kind of developed by your childhood that likes and dislikes things as they come along and reacts with incredible happiness when it goes your way and incredible unhappiness when it doesn't go your way. And you have no choice. Usually happiness is an occasional thing. Happens once in a while. You don't know how it happened or why it happened and you want it again. But because you don't know how or why, you don't know what to do. And so it comes and goes and you're at the mercy of outside events. Things that go your way make you happy. Things that don't go your way make you unhappy. There is no interaction with that other than a kind of tight-wounded human being who is struggling endlessly against the forces of nature around them, trying to get something that feels good. Spiritual work, sitting still, asking, as Rudi would say, for help to surrender, or meaning help to open, hope to allow, hope to accept, hope to be able to greet the what is of the universe. This work is so vibrant and so vital because 90% of what arrives you're not going to like. It doesn't quite match up with your expectations and your hopes. It's always a little bit off. The color's not quite right. The gift wasn't exactly what you were hoping for. There's all these things, and only by being able to open up do you see the perfection, the grace of every gift, of every moment. And trust me, when you do this work, you begin to see something working for you, with you, as you, in the universe. It is worth reaching for. When Bo passed away two weeks ago, we discovered a video that had been made of him talking, and it's now posted online on rudimovie.org. Exquisite film. And what's exquisite about it is that Bo, when I met him, was as unformed and incomplete and angry and tightly wound as anybody I'd ever known. And if I would ever imagine somebody who has no chance ever at a spiritual life, I probably would have nominated Bo. Excuse me. But as that video shows, it's what happens after sitting with Rudi for 40 years, even though Rudi was only alive for a short number of those years. The energy that Rudi represents, this inner space, this work, is not bound by life and death. It's not bound by personalities and forms. It is a living presence. And when somebody embodies that presence, you can often identify it with them. But anybody who truly embodies it knows it has nothing to do with them, because we are simply a form around which it expresses itself, or through which it expresses itself. You don't bow down to the hose that waters the garden. You don't. You thank the hose for being there, but the water is what matters. In a class, it's the water that matters. It's the nourishment that matters. It's the flow that happens. Anybody who knew me when I first met Rudi and when Blanche first met Rudi back in the 60s would also have said, oh, there's no way. I was a kid from Detroit, totally unformed. Certain ambitions, maybe bigger than Detroit ambitions of wanting to, I think, be in the theater or make movies or something like that. But I would never have given myself a shot at whatever this is I'm talking about now. I was not a candidate. I was just a schmuck, which Rudi said very vividly to me, you're a schmuck. And when I told him I felt really shallow, he said, put your fingers together. And you would, in a voting contest, I did not come in first, second, 12th, 100th as anything, but I had one thing going for me, one, and that is I was serious about the work. I sat every day, 20, 30 minutes a day, sometimes more, and I lit a candle, and I had Rudi's picture, I had Nityananda's picture. I sat and I did this breathing exercise that Rudi gave us called the work, the double breath exercise. I opened my heart, I really went there. I opened it up, I opened my belly chakra. What I really was doing was acknowledging that they were there and becoming acquainted with these spaces. And when you become acquainted with these spaces, they become alive. They open up. And when they open up, you're aware that you actually have a living thing inside you that can open and close and expand way beyond your body, way beyond your mind, way beyond your comfort zone, and deliver this remarkable sense of awareness, of cosmic awareness, that changes and transforms everything you know about the world. It is a remarkable practice. One would like to think that everybody would do it. But again, it's very self-selecting. Not a lot of people hunger for this. Mostly people are happy to have, a good TV show at night and a good dinner and a good night's sleep, and that's life. And some sex along the way, and some happiness, and some community. Totally understand that. It's great. The big problem with everything you get in life is that there is this elephant in the room that you never look at. It's called death. That everything you get and will get is of limited duration and will all be taken away. Everything, all your achievements, all your stuff, everything that made your life meaningful gets taken away, and you will look at empty, meaningless space at some point, which looks like an elephant in the room, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what do you do with that incredible obstruction of the happiness, the joy, and the meaning that you had? Well, if you pay attention to the elephant in the room when it's still burgeoning and starting to make itself known, you will see that it's not an alien creature. It is not an odd obstruction. It is a doorway. It is truth itself coming in and announcing very clearly that your ride is coming to an end. That this life you have had, that you loved and hated and enjoyed and feared and all of that, is going to go into some other state, whatever that may be, whether it's joy and bliss and heavenly or hellish or confusing and obstructed. You don't know, but something is coming and there is no way to avoid it. The exquisite thing about the work and the practice we do is it opens itself up to the elephant. It opens itself up to the exquisite knowing that this is temporary, that you as a physical being with all of your fears and hopes and ambitions, in a certain sense, are in avoidance of, ignoring, and afraid of the elephant. And as you break down that quality of separateness, you realize that that is you. That big, unknown, strange protrusion coming into life is inevitability. It is the reality and the fulfillment of life. There is something existentially awaiting you and every one of us. And if we have not done the work, there is no way to prepare for it. So if you're sitting at the end of your life and you're staring at the TV constantly and eating your little meals, on your shoulder, pushing you closer and closer to that TV, is this incredible weighty thing that you have never, ever allowed yourself to look at. Spiritual practice, the work, is turning your vision to what is. And the what is does not blot anything out. It will show you the elephant along with everything else. Here's an interesting thing. When you live in a room and there's an elephant in it, it takes over. When you work to deepen your being, when you really begin to expand, if in fact you even have this thing of awakening and enlightenment, this huge world expands around you, and the elephant in the room is really seen for what it is. It's not that big. It's definite. It's almost like a doorway. It's definite, it's there, but it's part of the totality. When you have seen the massiveness of being, this elephant in the room becomes the passage to truth. You stare at truth. You don't run away from it. You don't pretend it's not there. You go, of course. This is my chariot, if you will, to the other side, there is this exquisite sense in doing the work that you see life clearly. You see its beginning, its middle, you see its end. You reach for the whole of it, you expand into the whole of it, and you allow yourself to not be surprised by, in reaction to, or running away from truth. The exquisite thing about the work is that it works. The problem is pretending to work. If you do occasional work, again, you will have occasional reaction to all of what I'm talking about. If you get serious about this work, take that breath, open your heart, ask to surrender to the what is of life, to what is in front of you. Not to be looking away, not to be hiding, not to be pretending, just show up and be. A lot will happen. One of the things that will happen is you will not like everything you see. And the elephant may still not be appealing to you. It's there, but it may not be appealing. You may be afraid of it. You may start to fear dark forces that are unknown to you. Just because you're working doesn't mean you're suddenly free of all of that biological constraint. Rudi said, this is a life's work. A life's work. And I am now moving toward the end of my life, and I get it. The most valuable part of this entire work is now happening to me at this moment, because I have a muscle system built on 50 years of working that is allowing me to deal with the fact that there's nowhere else to look now but the elephant. That's all I got. It's coming. It's here. And it's terrifying, and it is the door to freedom, or the door to something. And so it's the time in my life where day by day, and more likely night by night, I have to go, okay, I accept this, I open to this too. You open and you open and you open. And I have spent years of my life opening, and I keep thinking, boy, you're pretty open. And then they show me layers of opening still beyond. So you can't get grandiose in this. You can't be anything but humble in it. And all you can do is say, thy will be done, and you open again, and you open again. But you can't open again and again if you're not doing the work. If you're not doing the work, you will be terrorized by that elephant. Sorry the elephant is such a motif. It's this weird motif. But it is this thing that starts to crowd into your life more and more as you get old, and it has to be dealt with. And it has to be dealt with by this mechanism that you have put in place over the course of a lifetime. Why you guys have self-selected to be here and be part of this work, I don't know. My job is service anybody who shows up. Help bring this Shakti pot, which is this additional energy, to you to help you with your practice. I look at you and I can see the knots and the conflicts and the dramas and the little obstructions, and I can actually, through the gift of this energy, which is not me or my energy, it's this gift that passes through, and it goes right into you, and it finds these places where the work has yet to affect itself. And it goes right in and cuts cords, opens, unknots knots, opens channels. That is what the gift of this practice is. It is allowing a higher energy to come through and help you with your work. I've said this many times. If there's anywhere else you can go to do this, that's great. I have no problem with you going anywhere in the world to do this. There are other teachers teaching this. I'm not sort of jealous of other teachers. My job is to be a hose with whoever shows up here, this garden. There are lots of gardens. Find the garden where you grow the best. Find the thing that lifts you up and allows you to flourish, to flower, to bloom over and over, to send seeds into the world, to become a full plant. That's what you want to do. This class is an opportunity for that. Shaktipat looks like what is that? This invisible force. Well, let me put it in the clearest terms. When you walk down the street and somebody smiles at you unexpectedly, and it's real, and you smile back, that's Shaktipat. That's what it feels like. When somebody hugs you and they mean it, that's Shaktipat. I cannot tell you why Rudi sat there staring at me in his classroom and loving me more than any person on the planet had ever loved me except maybe my mom. He loved me. He said, I am reparenting you. And he was. He was loving me. I can feel this energy coming through me as a person who's sat to open to it for 50 or more years. It comes through me and it loves you. Truly, truly, truly loves you. I feel so lucky to know you guys, to be in your presence, to see you as you are being seen by the universe, not with all your shit and problems and dramas, and of course it sees all that. It doesn't care. It doesn't care. In a way, each one of you to me is like 5 months old. It's like you're like infants in full promise. There's so much beauty in every one of you. You're so beautiful. And this loves that. It knows you're going to mess up. It knows you're going to have a life of drama and problem and lack of satisfaction and making wrong choices and all that. It doesn't care. It knows that goes on, and yet it goes right to the core, and it just loves you. And if you allow yourself to be loved, you will experience Shaktipat. You will experience the core of the work. And if you experience that, you will change as a being, and you will not be as reactive to your own bullshit as you have been in the past. You'll look at it and go, oh well, so much for that. Because that stuff doesn't travel with you. What travels with you is this heart. If your heart's shut down, well then, that's a problem. But if your heart has in any way open to you or to others and is flourishing in some way, that goes on. You know, in Ghost I said the love inside, you take it with you. I believe that. That's what you take. Get the love working, get the joy working, get the spirit flowing. All the crap falls away because you don't need it, it doesn't travel. All the life problems all go away. People who don't like you, it doesn't matter anymore. People you don't like, doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is there's this incredible childlike sweetness at the core that you discover doing this work. Do the work. Clearly I can talk forever about this. I'm going to stop just because there is a statute of limitations on talking about the work. So but the last thing I leave you with is encouraging you. Take the time. Stop during the day. If you can sit for a half hour, 20 minutes a day and meditate, it's really worth that. If you awaken in a spiritual sense, what you awaken to is 24/7 sitting. It doesn't ever stop. This goes on day and night, day and night. We are now in a time in the culture where we're starting to feel, all of us collectively, the weirdness of the world around us. The only counter action to that weirdness is a strong dose of joy and sweetness and love inside you that is already there. Nurture it, grow it, and then become a source of Shaktipat for everyone you know. Thank you guys for coming. Again, questions, if there's any, yeah, I'll try to give answers.
Just wanted to say one thing that I knew Rudi, but probably not as well as he did in some sense.
Speak up a little, George.
Just wanted to say that Rudi was the most incredible teacher I've ever seen in this world. But he was very human. He got hurt. His feelings were hurt. He basically got angry. And people got to realize that a teacher is somebody who is human. And we're all our own teachers. And forgive our own humanity, our own mistakes, our own things that go wrong, and just go through it and get beyond it. He did.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, that's really an essential element. And one of the great things about you and I, who are aging together on the same track, and those others of us who are doing the same thing, is you really do get to a point in spiritual practice where you haven't gotten there. You think you haven't gotten there. There's a mark of failure for most people in spiritual practice when you present a kind of diploma for most people that think they have gotten somewhere. There's nowhere to get. The diploma idea is completely, it's like a man-made capitalist society, get wealth and rich and be happy. It's not like that. And so people who are looking to become transcendent of being human, something that walks around just in a state of pure bliss endlessly, that I think is a terrible gift to present to the world because it's so hard to attain. And if it is attained, God bless the person who got it. But everybody else feels like, what about me? And the what about me is not a real state. The real state is, I am myself, and me is good enough. And the what about me is, you're not looking for perfection. You're not looking to become Albert Einstein. We're not built that way. We're looking to become George Subkoff, Bruce Rubin, Blanche Rubin. We're all trying to become who we are and to be at peace with, as best as possible, what we have found. And that's the whole journey. And you look at somebody like Bo, and you see somebody who became more and more and more at peace with and at home in who he was. He too was very human up to the end. We will all be human up to the end, but that's worth celebrating. Being human is kind of the goal. Becoming fully human is an extraordinary experience, and it involves happiness and sadness, joy and misery, and all the stuff in between. But having lived it means you lived a life of being human. It's a great achievement, and we're all doing it. So Shaktipat just, it deepens the equation. That's all I can say. It takes you beyond the norm on some level. It deepens and expands, but it never changes the equation. It just shows you what human beings are capable of being.
I like what you said in the past about combining the humanness with the work, and just being with whatever arises, and like it used to take 6 lifetimes to get over, then 60 years, then
It's Rudy's line, yeah.
yeah, then
6 hours, 6 minutes, 6 seconds.
yeah.
Yeah, the same.
Blast off.
What?
Blast off.
Blast off. No, Rudy said, if you start to see the patterning of your life, something that takes you 6 years to work on, starting that you can do the same thing in 6 months, and then 6 weeks, and then in 6 days, and 6 hours, and 6 minutes, and and at the end, you can be going like that. And stuff's falling away. Or, if you haven't done the work, it's adding on. It's just getting heavier and harder to move anything. It's just an option. It's an option. We're all given this option. Do the work and it changes you. Don't do the work, and then 6 lifetimes or 60 lifetimes or maybe 6 million lifetimes to do what you can do now, if you want to do it. And all it means, doing it now means only one thing: showing up to the present tense and being really grateful to be here. That's kind of mostly what you end up with. You just like incredible gratitude. Tony?
And just to add to that, I would say, once you show up in the present tense, that in some ways frees that elephant to be becoming more alive in the room or in your life, and then it's just hanging on for dear life as the elephant takes you on a ride.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's a beautiful way to put it. Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, it's, this elephant in the room idea is a really important concept. And as you get to a certain age, you really do realize that the time is very limited, and something is going on here that you're going to have to deal with. Looking away from it is not the right choice to make at the end of life. Staring right into it, staring into pain, staring into discomfort, staring into fear, embracing this stuff is really the result of a lifetime of work. And I was saying earlier to Hank that when most of my work now is in the middle of the night. And all of this stuff comes up, and it's very vivid. I mean, more like it than I've ever had it before ever. It's like dreams that are just like living things. And a lot of these fears and terrorizing things come up. And the thing that I keep finding, this voice that says, go toward it. Go toward it, over and over and over. And it deepens me and deepens me and deepens me. I'm telling you, getting old is, as they say, not for sissies, for a lot of reasons. It's tough work, and a lot of it's in the nighttime, and you've got to have your mechanisms in place to be able to deal with this stuff. Otherwise, it's, you know, all those drugs that they give you to sleep, and that's not the answer. It's just not the answer.
Yeah, being human, I think being human, authentic, courage to be vulnerable is love. Because the opposite of that is hatred. And as I experience more hatred in the world, like anti-Semitism, racism, fundamentalism, this white neo-Nazism, I'm also experiencing more love. Like I'm seeing people around me, where I live in the city, and like people are more loving. There's a movement now to validate vulnerability. That's a strength, and I'm actually experiencing people around me being kinder. And there's a unifying force.
Yes.
I'm feeling that is like a backlash from the hate.
I think it's a
And I
natural
think it's-
balance.
Yeah.
You know, because I was born in the middle of World War II, and I came of consciousness as the war was ending, and I was around wonderful people. And part of being around wonderful people was the realization they had gone through the worst of times. And the darkness of the times created community, created people who shared their sugar when they had
Yes.
very little left, who really were trying to be there for others because of they knew the pain. We are going through exactly the same kind of, we're going through very dark times right now.
Yes.
And I don't want to do a whole talk on dark
Yeah.
times, but as you go through dark times, there is the opportunity for exactly what you're saying. And gatherings like this, and I'm not trying to sell you on this gathering, but gatherings like this are very meaningful. And we come together to help and support each other. Just a quick addition to all this, one of the new students here is a guy named John Halpern, who gives retreats, spiritual retreats. I've never been to one of his retreats, so I don't know that I can tell you what they are exactly, but I did say I would mention it to everybody in the room, that John is giving a retreat next weekend, and it's a 3-day retreat, and it's a retreat meaning a place for people to sit for 3 days and do nothing but what we're talking about. Not this particular practice, he has his own practice. But I said I would be happy to mention it to people in the class. If you're looking for a 3-day quiet retreat up near Big Indian, actually, let me know, and I will put you in touch with John and his group.
Is that John D. Leva helper?
Yeah. Yes. So please let me know, and I'll make that possible for you. Anybody else? Thank you, guys.